This video contains strong adult language, may not be suitable for children or sensitive people. Boom boom.
Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens had some rough years at QB before Steve McNair, Joe Flacco, and Lamar Jackson.
Throw the damn thing away! God almighty, Trent.
Trent Dilfer is famously known as the worst passer to hoist the Lombardi, but Kyle Bowler spent years squandering an elite defense. He only went 20-22 in 5 seasons with Baltimore and threw more touchdowns than picks, but the Ravens wasted too much time trying to make the former 19th overall pick into a franchise QB when he was clearly just occupying space. Baltimore Ravens, Billy Cundiff. Baltimore has a rich kicking history, trotting out perhaps the best to ever do it since 2012. But before Justin Tucker, Billy Cundiff was manning the kicker duties. Cundiff wasn't bad most of the time, hitting nearly 80% of his tries, but had one of the worst field goal attempts of all time in the most crucial juncture of the 2011 AFC title game, causing Ravens fans to curse his name until the end of time.
Get the fuck out of Baltimore! You fucking piece of shit! You've been unreliable all fucking season! Get the fuck out! Get the fuck out! Get the fuck out of my house right now!
Baltimore Ravens, Hines Ward. If you're a Ravens fan, you didn't even need to watch this video. It was Hines Ward from the start. There's no way this dude walks the streets of Baltimore and doesn't hear "fuck you" from every window in the town. Widely regarded by opposing teams for being a dirty player, Ward brought the extra dirty every time he played the Ravens. Crackbacks, big hits, and clutch catches. Yep, Ravens fans hate his ass. Baltimore Ravens. It's strange to imagine, but there's a universe where Joe Flacco wins back-to-back Super Bowls if Billy Cundiff could have aimed that kick about 30 yards more to the right. Of course, that boot did get them Justin Tucker, so maybe Ravens fans should be a little grateful. Baltimore Ravens, Steve Bisciotti. Another tough-to-hate owner, Steve Bisciotti bought the team in 2004. The only meddling he has done was fire Brian Billick in 2007 and replace him with John Harbaugh, who has been the coach ever since. Bisciotti was chosen over Art Modell, who was hated in Cleveland, but not Baltimore. The Baltimore Ravens. A lot of people remember Kyle Bowler as being a huge draft bust. But did you know that the Ravens also traded up for him in 2003? Needing a QB after the Elvis Grbac debacle, the Ravens gave the Pats a second and a first, and then Bowler was taken 19th overall. Bowler only made 42 career starts and sucked ass through a straw on most of them. The 2 picks, one became tight end Benny Joprue, and the other was Hall of Fame defensive tackle Vince Wilfork. So as you'll see, trading with the Pats will fork up your franchise. Baltimore Ravens, Eric DeCosta. It's really hard to even call Eric DeCosta a bad GM, as the Ravens have had nothing but success since arriving in Baltimore. It was either him or front office legend Ozzie Newsome, who won 2 rings in his near 20-year tenure. DeCosta is 56-27, drafted Lamar Jackson, and has made the playoffs 4 out of his first 5 years, but does not have a ring yet. Baltimore Ravens. Now this one I had never heard of before. Apparently, in 1996, the team stole their logo from Frederick Bochat, a security guard from Maryland, who argued for years that the Ravens' original logo was similar to a drawing he submitted to the Maryland Stadium Authority years prior to the Ravens stealing it. Although the original case asked for $10 million in damages, the final amount awarded depends on how much profit the Ravens and NFL properties made on the logo, which could be a lot more than $10 million. Who knew the Ravens were copyright thieving bastards back then? M&T Bank Stadium, Baltimore, Maryland. Just like you probably were, this stadium was born in the 90s. The team announced a $450 million renovation to take place between 2024 and 2026, so it's unlikely that the stadium gets replaced anytime soon, and they have done a great job of keeping it looking young, unlike your mom. AFC North, Baltimore Ravens, 2007. In 2007, the Ravens hit rock bottom when they lost 22-16 in overtime to the winless Miami Dolphins. Entering the game with an 8-game losing streak, Baltimore was expected to handle the 0-13 Dolphins. They didn't. Instead, the Ravens were outplayed and fell in overtime, marking a low point in a 5-11 season that ultimately led to Super Bowl winning head coach Brian Billick's firing. Kyle Bowler was the QB on the team, and Rick Neuheisel was the OC. What a shit show. Baltimore Ravens. Yes, the Ravens lost the 2012 AFC Championship game on a missed field goal, but then they won the Super Bowl next year, so it doesn't sting that bad. But Lamar's postseason struggles have been devastating, like last year when you lost to the Chiefs 17-10 because the NFL wanted Taylor Swift, and I can't think of anything worse than that. Baltimore Ravens, 1996. The Ravens' inaugural season in Baltimore wasn't just bad on the field, it was a reminder of how hard it can be to start fresh, even out of a moving van. They went 4-12, but more frustrating was their historically awful defense, which allowed 441 points, the worst in the league. Bizarrely, they had the 6th best scoring offense, but still got outscored by 70 points over the course of the year. Since that awful first season, though, the team has never had less than 5 wins in a year, making Browns fans seethe with anger every day. Not because of the Ravens, but because they live in Cleveland.
At least we're not Detroit!
Baltimore Ravens. I'm gonna break protocol. I'm gonna give the most iconic for 2 different TDs, but for 1 player. First, Jacoby Jones pulled off one of the most unlikely catches in playoff history, the Mile High Miracle. Jones' 70-yard TD tied the 2012 divisional game, which the Ravens would eventually win in overtime. In that very same postseason, Jacoby Jones returned a kickoff in Super Bowl 47, 109 yards that put them up 28-6, where they ultimately held on because they had the smarts to never hire Kyle Shanahan. Jones also scored a 56-yard TD earlier in that game. He was a monster that postseason. Sadly, in 2024, Jacoby Jones suffered a cardiac event and passed away at the age of 40. Fly high, Jacoby. The Baltimore Ravens. Guys, I got one. Lamar Jackson, get this. Wait for it. He's a running back. Oh yeah, that's a good one. 4,172 passing yards and 41 passing TDs, but all he can do is run. I am so freaking clever. The Laundry Room, M&T Bank Stadium. Tucked inside M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore is a treasure of history few fans will ever get to see. Obviously, every NFL stadium has a laundry room to wash jock straps and the tears out of Patrick Mahomes' jersey after he cries to a ref, but this one is special. Just off the industrial equipment room is a wall which is signed by nearly every famous player, both home and away, who's come to play at M&T Bank Stadium against the Ravens. The stadium was built in 1998, so you have over a quarter century of history on these walls. It's a super cool part of the NFL. Baltimore Ravens. So, how did that trade for Deontay Johnson work out for you? I get Lamar had an amazing MVP-like season, but doesn't your butthole pucker a little bit when those playoffs start, like you wiped your purple little sphincter with poison ivy? Oh yes, playoff Lamar is a real thing, and it's likely about to rear its ugly head. Also, how in the fuck did you lose to the Raiders and the Browns? And those weren't even by the slimmest of margins.
Baltimore Ravens. You might have already known this, or you might not have, but the Baltimore Ravens are named after a poem called The Raven by Maryland native Edgar Allan Poe. What's the problem? Edgar Allan Poe married his 13-year-old cousin, and by naming themselves after a guy who was both a pedophile and incestuous, the Baltimore Ravens are promoting pedophilia and incest. Seriously though, naming your team after a guy who married a 13-year-old, you might as well call yourself the Baltimore Carmel Malones, am I right? Baltimore Ravens, Rashad Perriman. Perriman was picked 26th overall in the 2015 NFL Draft, and he missed what would have been his entire rookie season in 2015, but it didn't really matter. When he was on the field, he didn't produce much either. In 2016 and 2017, the only 2 seasons which he played for the team that drafted him, he put up 43 catches for 576 yards and 3 touchdowns, never making the playoff. He went on to bounce around with a few teams and was somewhat okay, I guess, but never anywhere close to warranting a first-round status that he has. His career is likely over. Baltimore Ravens, Kyle Bowler, 2003. There haven't been a lot of outright terrible seasons at quarterback in the Ravens' history, and they've been around since 1996, but there is a lot of mid, and Kyle Bowler was at the forefront of that mid. He was a first-round pick from the University of California because he had a strong arm, but he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. At least that was the scouting report for him coming out of the draft, and the draft critics appeared to be right. As a rookie, rookie, he started 9 games, going 5-4 in those games, despite completing just 52% of his passes and throwing more interceptions than touchdowns with a dreadful 62 passer rating. I guess it helps when you have Ed Reed and Ray Lewis and Terrell Suggs coming in and a dominant defense to help you like that with Kyle Bowler. But Kyle Bowler would go on to be one of the biggest draft busts in the history of the sport, and specifically with the Baltimore Ravens, so it's no surprise to see him here. Baltimore Ravens. Oh, and speaking of Ray Lewis, the Ravens still have a statue of him, a guy who admitted to obstruction of justice so he could get off of a double murder charge back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then he went on to win a Super Bowl, and then for the rest of his career, just used God as a crutch to just spew a bunch of bullshit. The guy is one of the biggest phonies. Sure, whatever, he was a great linebacker, who cares? He's one of the biggest fucking phonies, and your franchise idolizes him, and that's what you get. You deserve to fucking suffer in the playoffs every year, just like you have with Lamar Jackson, because you honor Ray Lewis. That's fucking disgusting. And you would have honored Ray Rice too if that elevator video hadn't come out. I remember, okay, people were welcoming Ray Rice back with open arms after he beat the shit out of his wife. And then the elevator video came out from TMZ, of course, and then people acted offended, and then Ray Rice got released and never played in the NFL again. But by the way, let's talk about Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, whatever. We all know he can beat up shitty teams in the regular season. We all know his regular season numbers are great or whatever, and he puts up huge numbers in the regular season. This guy is the biggest choker in the history of the NFL. The biggest choker in the history of the NFL, and I say that as a guy who actually, I like Lamar. I like Lamar. He seems like a funny guy. He doesn't seem like a bad guy at all, but the guy, when you look at statistically how far he falls off, and people make excuses for him, oh, he doesn't have enough receivers. He doesn't have the right play caller. Blah, 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 fucking blah. Every year it's another excuse. If you're that good, get the job done, show up. It's one thing to lose and put up great numbers, okay? It's one thing to lose, or it's one thing to get beat. It's another thing to choke. It's another thing to perform at an exceptional level all season long, and then once the playoffs come around, completely fall flat on your face time and time again. And that's what Lamar has done more than any other quarterback that I can think of that actually mattered. This is a guy with 2 MVPs. He might win a 3rd MVP. That's first ballot Hall of Fame. That's like inner circle Hall of Fame. And so we're not talking about like Andy Dalton shit. Yeah, Andy Dalton was a terrible playoff quarterback. Drew Bledsoe, Cordell Stewart was a terrible playoff quarterback. Okay, Jim Kelly even was a bad playoff quarterback if you look at the stats. But those guys didn't have any MVPs. Okay, those guys didn't have 2 MVPs. Those guys weren't like, oh, we might get a 3rd MVP before turning 28 like Lamar is. Lamar is the biggest choker in the history of the NFL at this point. He could turn it around, but he's kind of like Joel Embiid, where you just know that when the moment is there to be met, this guy is not going to come through. And Ravens fans, they can continue to blame everybody from Santa Claus to the mascot, but at the end of the day, it's on Lamar Jackson to get it done, and he just has not gotten it done. Baltimore Ravens offensive line. Now, this isn't exactly a video talking about, oh, what's the biggest team need? You think, oh, they must suck at that position. And that's not necessarily the case, because remember, there's a thing called free agency. So this is a case of where the Ravens offensive line isn't a position of weakness, but with the amount of free agents they have, Ronnie Stanley, Patrick McCarry, they're free agents. Reserve offensive lineman Josh Jones and amazing driver Ben Cleveland, they're both going to be free agents. So that's, about half their offensive linemen are not going to be under contract. So they're going to need to draft some offensive linemen if they want to keep that dominant run game going. And they're also probably, it wouldn't hurt if they got a new kicker too, considering Justin Tucker's offseason. Baltimore Ravens, 1996. This is a pretty easy one. In their first ever draft as a franchise after moving from Cleveland, in their first 2 picks, they selected 2 Hall of Famers. Yes. Jonathan Ogden, 4th overall, went on to be a Hall of Fame offensive lineman at the offensive tackle position, 11 Pro Bowls and 4 first-team All-Pros, but the crown jewel was obviously Ray Lewis, the 26th overall pick. He made 12 Pro Bowls and was a 7-time first-team All-Pro, as well as a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year and a Super Bowl MVP, and he also racked up 2 kills. In addition to that, as if that wasn't good enough, they also selected Jermaine Lewis, who is a big part of their special teams in their Super Bowl run in 2000. He made 2 Pro Bowls and a first-team All-Pro as a special teamer. If you want to know why the Ravens won a Super Bowl relatively early in their career as a franchise, you can look right back to this draft. Baltimore Ravens, Elvis Grbac, 2001. The logic here makes sense. The Ravens were coming off of a Super Bowl win with Trent Dilfer, who everybody and their mom knew was just a game manager, and Elvis Grbac was coming off of a very good season in Kansas City. So the Ravens, using transitive property, thought, hey, we won a Super Bowl with a terrible quarterback. We're going to dominate and easily win the Super Bowl if we upgrade a quarterback with Elvis Grbac, and that's not what happened at all. Grbac signed a 5-year, $30 million contract, and the Ravens got just 1 season out of him where he threw threw more interceptions than touchdowns, and they ended up losing in the divisional round of the playoffs. Gerbach would then retire after the 2001 season at the age of 31. Now look, I'm not saying the Ravens would have gone on to be a dynasty if they had kept Trent Dilfer, but I think if they had known how badly the Gerbach situation was going to turn out, they probably would have just stuck with Dilfer due to camaraderie. Maybe. I don't know. It's the Ravens. Who knows what they do? Baltimore Ravens, John Harbaugh. We're going on year 18 of the John Harbaugh experience in Baltimore. Of course, as we all know, he has a Super Bowl championship that he won back in 2012, but his playoff success since then, even with a superstar quarterback, has not been great, and therefore it has led to a bunch of fans basically saying, hey, it's run its course, it's time to move on, we love you for what you did for our team and the history of our team, but it's time for some new blood. I don't feel like the front office, though, feels that way. I think, for the most part, that John Harbaugh's job is pretty fucking safe, and I might eat my words, but yes, I do believe John Harbaugh's job is safe, and I do think the Ravens will keep winning a lot of games because Lamar Jackson's one of the 3 or 4 best players in the league in his prime. The playoffs, that's a different story, but the Ravens, with their combination of Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson, when they're both there, they will win a lot of regular season games, and they will be in the dance come January, and that's a lot more than a lot of people can say. So I think Harbaugh's hot seat ranking a very light 2 out of 5, despite some Ravens fans wanting him to be gone. Baltimore Ravens, Nate Wiggins. When the Ravens took Wiggins 30th overall last season, they were expecting a shutdown corner with elite speed. And while Wiggins had a solid rookie season, including 1 interception with a pick 6, it left a little bit to be desired. But the potential is still there. Wiggins just needs to bulk up, as he weighed in at just 182 pounds, which is very, very skinny by NFL standards. Although, biasly, I might admit, the Eagles got the best cornerback in the draft with Quinyon Mitchell. Wiggins has the ability to be the second best, and I believe he'll take a leap in his second season and will help take a Ravens defense that was good, not great, to elite in 2025. Baltimore Ravens, Jair Alexander. There's no doubting Alexander's talent when he's healthy, which is the big problem. In the last 4 seasons, he's only been healthy 1 time, which was in 2022. Just take a look at his games played since 2021. 4, 16, and then 7 in each of the last 2 seasons. The Ravens, I sure are betting on him staying healthy to add to their defense, but it doesn't matter how good you are if you're not on the field, and despite his reputation as an elite cornerback, it appears that Alexander suffers from a severe case of Bob Sanders-itis. Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson. Simply put, Lamar Jackson had one of the best seasons ever in 2024, and he was robbed of the MVP. But a lot of people said, well, now it's even because he shouldn't have won it in 2023, but that's a whole nother can of worms. That's not the point of this. We all know at this rate that Lamar Jackson is one of the greatest players in NFL history. To me, he's already a first ballot Hall of Famer, and the same bugaboos are always the same bugaboos with him, and that hasn't changed this year, just like it hasn't in any of the last years. It's the playoffs, and the longer that Lamar goes without winning a ring or even making a Super Bowl, the bigger and bigger the questions are going to be. It reminds me a lot of Peyton in the early 2000s, where he was putting up these historic numbers and winning MVPs, and he still hadn't won a ring. Now, Peyton eventually got his ring in 2006, so maybe Lamar will be able to squeak out a ring, right? Because the Ravens are still fielding a really good team, and Lamar is smack dab in his prime. But, you know, that's really where all the prove-it points are left, is he has nothing left to prove in the regular season, right? He's made a conference championship game. Now, the only thing left for him to do is to go win a Super Bowl. He's already proven everything else. So I have his prove-it rating at a 4 out of 10.
Since the draft is officially concluded in Green Bay, we have finally reached the barren wastes of the NFL offseason. We all got so caught up in headlines and the squirming taking place between Mel Kiper and his lusty quarterback.
The only thing wrong with him is that he's completely unlikable and his teammates absolutely hate him. One of his teammates was his brother, but there are tons of people that have no talent and still get paid a lot of money. I mean, look at me.
Yet those that were paying attention knew it was coming when the Ravens drafted a specific position on day 3.
With the 186th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Tyler Loop, kicker from Arizona.
Now, this wasn't an addition for the sake of competition. It's Baltimore escaping a trap, mostly after news broke in January of Justin Tucker's misdeeds about a decade ago. Considering he was fresh off the worst season of his professional career, it made it a no-brainer. For those living under a rock, the Baltimore Banner published an article including first-hand accounts from 6 local masseuses speaking of their interactions with Tucker. In summary, Mr. Tucker was, shall we say, a bit of a pervert. On many occasions, purposely brushing his manhood on those massaging him, and even finishing on the massage table on one occasion among many other stated incidents. The article's linked further below if you wish to look further into specifics. The 6 women went on to tell of experiences so vulgar that 2 of their spas had apparently banned Tucker permanently for his actions. Justin denied any misconduct took place, but since then 6 more women have come forward detailing similar accusations. When there's smoke, there's fire. And in a second statement, Justin again denied any wrongdoing, but slipped an open letter at the end, stating he did apologize to anyone I have worked with that felt Tucker didn't treat them professionally or as a person. Total lawyer speak, I know. It sounds painfully familiar. Just a few years prior, Deshaun Watson, after publicly requesting a trade out of Houston, was met with a battery of civil suits detailing almost identical accusations to the ones made against Tucker. Except instead of having his job challenged, he was traded to Cleveland for 3 first-round picks. With a grave punishment for his actions would be an 11-game suspension and $230 million guaranteed. The NFL did run an investigation into Deshaun's actions, and they've stated that they're keeping a close eye on the developments in the Tucker situation as well. However, there's one major difference between the two. Alleged trajectory. Watson, even after being outed as an alleged sex pest and not playing in over a year, still was a Pro Bowl QB with a proven track record of franchise-caliber play. And Cleveland decided to bring this fine adult into their quarterback room, which would in no way be regrettable to them down the road. Before the article, Justin Tucker did everything he could to paint himself as a loving family man, a wholesome father, a player always involved in the community, and with a voice that could soothe the most restless of babes. But over the past 2 years, especially the 2024 campaign, his skill level fell off a cliff. It wasn't simply misses over 50 yards anymore. He was actively costing the Ravens games. Once automatic chip shots produced a harmony of groans and wide kicks. But would they bench him? Fuck no. Before the year, Justin was the most accurate kicker in the history of the NFL, holding the record for longest field goal in league history and destined for a bronze-busting Kenton. Harbaugh would shoot the idea down at press conference after press conference. But the misses kept piling up, forcing changes in offensive philosophy on distances that were once automatic for Tucker. Best example here's Jeff Reed. Remember him? Total piece of shit who had been arrested numerous times as a Steeler? He could punch as many Sheets towel dispensers as he pleases. He'd have a job in the NFL. Until he couldn't kick a football anymore. That day's come for Tucker. That once golden leg of his has been Tanya Harding. And suddenly this baggage makes him a lot more disposable. And it finally happened on Cinco de Mayo. The tequila shot was his release papers.
We have breaking news out of the NFL where the Ravens have released kicker Justin Tucker. The news comes just a few months after he was accused of sexual misconduct at multiple Baltimore area spas.
And Baltimore released a statement that pretty much confirmed everything without saying it. Don't believe me? Just before they looked to replace the problem child at place kicker, the Ravens spent this year's second-round pick on Marshall edge rusher Mike Green, an almost superhuman talent in college. Albeit with a history that at its most generous should raise an eyebrow. After being dismissed from the University of Virginia's football roster, Mike fessed up at the NFL Combine that there wasn't just one accusation of sexual assault. There was a second accusation that hit the tower. Him whispering in the Ravens' ear and all. Who better to point out this double standard than the publisher of the original Tucker allegations? Just after Green was drafted, the Baltimore Banner released an article detailing an exchange in 2022 between head coach John Harbaugh and a member of the press. Following the Browns acquiring Watson, John stated the team has a zero-tolerance policy. He even cited the rules and guidelines put into place in their locker room following Ray Rice's videotaped domestic abuse of his wife, shown as an example that that kind of character wouldn't be tolerated in their building. You can kind of see the hypocrisy in this statement in light of using a second-rounder on Green. Especially because when he was trying to do damage control after the pick, Harbaugh would backpedal his comments made like he was Marlon Humphrey defending Jamar Chase. Now stating that there is no zero-tolerance policy on Ba Sing Se, and that they deal with and consider each situation individually. Don't get me wrong, the NFL and sports as a whole are full of nefarious beings that brands and teams are willing to look past due to their superhuman abilities on the field of play. But the moment that talent begins to slip, or there isn't much of it to begin with, teams are more than happy to show their problem children out the door. This isn't an opportunity to shit on the Ravens specifically, although I do enjoy that this is a league-wide trend. Especially when the Shield tries to limit celebrations and taunting for the sake of children watching.
Won't somebody please think of the children? an example are we setting?
Ladies, please. All our founding fathers, astronauts, and World Series heroes have been either drunk or on cocaine.
Tyreek Hill, numerous accusations of domestic abuse despite no charges being filed. It's a headache, but Tyreek's really fucking good at playing football. He'll stay put in the league. Antonio Brown was a cancerous asshole and sexual deviant, but it never stopped the Steelers, Raiders, Patriots, and Buccaneers gambling with his bullshit in hopes that it would land a Lombardi. Hell, the Steelers brought back Cam Sutton this past year after playing GTA IRL out of a job in Detroit, even knowing he'd be suspended for half the season. You think Big Ben would have survived those rape allegations if he couldn't throw a football? If you do, I've got some beachfront property on the Allegheny to sell you. The likes of Greg Hardy and Alden Smith kept getting work despite repeated run-ins with the law until they were cooked. Watson, Sutton, Tucker, Rice, Josh Brown of the Giants, it doesn't matter. The league can only have its cake and eat it too for so long. You can't grandstand when a division rival brings a less than reputable character on their squad, and conveniently pivot hard when you find it competitively advantageous to do the same. I know damn well I'm not the right person to pitch this sort of argument. You can argue I'm a massive hypocrite and you're probably right. But that doesn't mean that there shouldn't be one. Because how low can you go until it's deemed enough? If Henry Ruggs were to be released from jail today, if he had the ability to play at the level he was at in 2021...
This is Henry Ruggs right here. Huh? This is Henry Ruggs right here, bro. He played for the Raiders. Relax, come down.
You know there would be teams calling. You'll have a job in the NFL, as long as you can perform. Once you're more trouble than you're worth, get the hell out. Get ready to learn NFLPA pension.